So, tell me, why did you move with Mayflower?
Because I didn't want the stress or the surprises you'd get with a move broker or mom and pop. This move was about the destination, not the chaos. That's why we chose Mayflower. They're America's most trusted mover for a good reason. They've been at it for 100 years. That kind of experience matters.
What do they do for you?
Everything. Packing and unpacking, custom crating, furniture setup, storage. It was all spelled out in the move quote. Nothing caught us off guard.
That alone is worth it.
It was. We had a professional move coordinator keeping us updated the whole way. And knowing our belongings were protected with their full value protection, that was huge.
So, no moving day panic?
None. Professional crews, careful handling, and the freedom to actually enjoy starting fresh.
For more than a century, Mayflower has delivered worldwide capability and full-service care every step of the way. Big move ahead? You're in trusted hands with Mayflower. 100 years of moving expertise delivered with care, local, long distance, and global. Get a quote at mayflower.com.
A colossal monster, a city in ruins, no way out, except inside of the all-electric Toyota CHR. John Cho stars in Escape. Test drive Toyota's new all-electric family today. Toyota, let's go places.
I now pronounce you man and...
Hey, it's Uncle Jim. I know you're getting married, but I exposed you to COVID-19 yesterday.
Thanks, but our doctor gave us a prescription for Zacova and Citrovir to have on hand. It's the only prescription pill approved for people 12 years and older to help prevent COVID-19 after exposure and should be started within 3 days of exposure.
Taking Zacova with certain medicines can cause serious or life-threatening side effects or affect how it or other medicines work. Tell your doctor about all your medicines, vitamins, and supplements, as lab tests or dose changes may be needed, and if you are or plan to be pregnant or breastfeed. Zacova may harm your unborn baby. Tell your doctor about any changes to your medicines before you start Zacova. Do not take Zacova if allergic to its ingredients. Serious side effects include allergic reactions, some severe like anaphylaxis. Get medical help right away if you have rash, hives, itching, swelling of your mouth, lips, tongue, or face, trouble swallowing or breathing, throat tightness, dizziness, lightheadedness, stomach area pain, or vomiting. These are not all the possible side effects. Ask your doctor about Zacova. For more information, call 1-877-4-ZACOVA or visit xocova.com.
In the early morning hours of August 23, 1987, a Union Pacific freight train barreled through the darkness near Alexander, Arkansas. As it rounded a curve, the engineer saw something lying across the tracks. He sounded the horn and slammed on the brakes, but a train weighing thousands of tons does not stop quickly. Lying side by side on the rails were two teenagers. Authorities initially claimed they'd smoked marijuana, fallen asleep on the tracks, and been struck by the train. But that wasn't what the evidence would show. What followed was not simply a murder investigation, it became a decades-long story of conflicting autopsies, missing evidence, frightened witnesses, suspicious deaths, alleged drug drops, political influence, and accusations that ran far beyond a very small town in Arkansas. This is the story of Don Henry and Kevin Ives, the boys on the tracks. Hey y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Potter. Welcome to Hitch to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our friends over there in Singapore.
Yes.
Selamat datang, selamat datang, selamat datang.
Very nice.
Thanks.
Well, wherever you're listening, be sure to like, rate, and review the podcast. It just takes a second. It helps other true crime people to find us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below.
Please.
If you want true crime with us all the time, with Hitch to Homicide, please go join our closed Facebook group. They're called the In-Laws and Outlaws. Go to Facebook, type in H2H In-Laws and Outlaws, answer a couple questions, and you are in. We've got lots of new people in there. Welcome
Yes.
to all the new people.
Yes.
You can find us on Instagram at Hitch to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. And we also have a Buy Me a Coffee link where you can send Rob some coffee.
Oh, please.
You can caffeinate him up today. You can also send us a message or a text, and that link is now at the bottom of the show notes.
There you go.
Well, have you ever heard the phrase, dead men tell no tales?
Yes.
There's a lot of dead people in this podcast today.
Here we go.
Before we get started, let me thank some sources. Arkansas Times, Sitcom Online, KATV, Saline County Grand Jury Files, Unsolved Mysteries, Innocence Project, Reddit, KARK, Wikipedia. There is a book, The Boys on the Tracks, Death Denial and a Mother's Crusade to Bring Her Son's Killers to Justice by Mara Leverett. I will have a link to her book as well as all the other sources. And, buddy, there's a lot of them.
It sounds like it.
In the show notes.
All right. Well, you ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
Larry Kevin Ives is born on April 28, 1970. He's the second child and the only son of Larry and Linda Ives. Kevin's father, Larry, worked for the Union Pacific Railroad as a train engineer. Okay. Kevin went by his middle name. He was a good student. He was well liked by his classmates and his teachers. He was part of a really tight-knit neighborhood group of about 8 boys. We have some of those in our neighborhood. Yeah. They've got a little scooter gang, and we always see them huddling up on the corner. And they're waiting for everybody to get there so they can all go out on their scooters.
You know, I think that's with every neighborhood or every group. Because, I've said it 100 times. I grew up way out in the country, and there was only, I think, 3 or 4 houses on our country block. And so during the summer, it was me, Darren Cavalt, Randy Sowers, Rick Howe, and Rod Howe. That was a group all summer.
They all got a shout out, too.
They all got a shout out. So, so whether you live in town or a big city or what, there's always a group. The
group of guys.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I always get a kick out of the scooter gang in our neighborhood.
Yeah, they're funny.
But he loved his car. It was a T-top Camaro that he washed almost daily and kept scratch-free. This is a man after Rob's heart. And also he enjoyed water skiing and video games. He had a dog named Jake. Yeah. He lived with his parents in Bryan, Arkansas, in the Alexander Bryan area of Saline County.
And how old was he again?
He is
17.
He's 17. One is 17, the other 16.
Okay, I just wanted to keep it straight.
Kevin's best friend, who is 16, is Don Henry. Okay. Donald George Henry is born on September 30th, 1970. He's just a few months younger than Kevin. Don lived with his father, Curtis, and his stepmother. Her name is either Marvel or Merrill. It's spelled different ways in different sources.
Marvel?
Mm-hmm. Don also had an older sister, and Don lived near the railroad tracks in Alexander, Arkansas. Okay. Now, in 1987, this is my time, man. Mm-hmm. In 1987, both Kevin and Don attended Bryant High School and were going into their senior year. I was going into my senior year as well, but of college, not high school. Yeah. Now, the 80s were a time of many things. MTV, Michael Jackson, big hair, Back to the Future.
It was a great era.
It was a time of booming consumerism, groundbreaking technology. There was the fear of the Cold War. And in politics, it was a time of Ronald Reagan from January 1981 to January of 1989. Right. And in Arkansas, it was a time of Bill Clinton. He served as governor from January 1979 to January of 1981, and then he lost his re-election in 1980, but went back to the office in January of 1983 until he became president in January of 1993.
Right.
Now, I'm going to say this right from the start. There are many differing opinions on what's happening in Arkansas during the 1980s and early 90s. There are lots of different opinions on this true crime case in particular. All I can give you are the facts that I have found through the sources that I have cited in the show notes. I'm only saying this because I'm going to get nasty comments and emails about this case. There's just no way around it. So what I want to do is frame this the best that I can and allow the listener to decide. Everybody's going to have their own opinion, and there are enough conspiracy theories to wrap around the state of Arkansas 100 times.
Yeah.
So save yourself the time and trouble of sending me an ugly message and telling me how stupid I am if I don't tell the story the way you think it should be told.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to say this as well. This story isn't any sort of political statement on my part or Rob's part.
Nope.
This is an unsolved crime of 2 young boys.
We are apolitical.
Now that I have that out of the way,
Leave us alone. Just kidding.
it's the 1980s in Arkansas, and a drug smuggler who'd been smuggling marijuana since 1977, depending on who you believe, is approached by the CIA to move his operation from Louisiana to Mena, Arkansas, where the runway is long and the cargo planes can easily get in and out. What they want him to do is smuggle guns into Nicaragua. His name was Barry Seal.
Is this the movie American Made?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, with Tom Cruise.
Yes.
All right, I love that movie.
So Barry had a background in aviation, working for TWA, and a reputation for being able to fly anything that had wings. And the CIA and FBI believed that he was the man for the job. Again, this is just a conspiracy theory.
Okay.
So the right-wing Contra guerrillas were attempting to bring down the Marxist Sandinista government in Nicaragua. And in 1984, Congress cut off funding for the resistance. But President Reagan and the CIA wanted to keep the fight going, allegedly.
Okay.
But they needed a way to pay for it. The conspiracy theory is that the CIA station chief in Costa Rica, Joe Fernandez, knew the Contras, the Nicaraguan Democratic Force, and needed alternative funds, and those funds would come from an already thriving drug trade. Cocaine was obtained from Colombia and moved to Panama, where it was protected by the Panamanian Defense Forces. From Panama, the drugs were moved to Costa Rica, personally guarded by the Minister of Public Security. The drugs were then flown into the United States. Now, the FBI and the CIA handled the flights from this very small airport in Mena, Arkansas, and this was set up as a covert entry point into the United States. Now, many conspiracy theorists say that Arkansas was the place where politicians could be bought on the cheap. So Mena quickly became the American hub of the Iran-Contra operations.
Wow, I didn't know any of this.
So weapons were flown out in the same planes that brought back cocaine, and there was secret training of the Contra guerrillas happening nearby. Now, whenever a local sheriff or someone would try to get involved and stop Barry Seal, someone from higher up would call and put the kibosh on it. The DEA would call and say that what Barry was doing was very valuable to them. You can't arrest him. You can't do anything to him. So the local guys are like, what's this guy up to?
Yeah.
And we're going to go arrest him. And the DEA is calling him going, no, you're not.
So the movie wasn't really exact on...
The movie is not exact to the story, depending on whether you believe conspiracy or you believe what the United States government has officially said about all of this.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
Which is why I said, make up your own mind.
Right.
Don't email me. Okay?
I'll try not to email you.
The official story is that Barry Seal was caught and indicted in Florida through an investigation called Operation Screamer. And when he's caught trying to import a large shipment of cocaine, and I believe it was Quaaludes, he cut a deal with the DEA, and he only worked for the United States government after he is caught. It's not like they went to him and said, hey, Barry, we're recruiting you to do this. We're going to move you from Louisiana into Arkansas, right?
Okay.
What they're saying is, we caught him and he made a deal to help us because he was in trouble.
That's the theory.
That's what the United States of America says.
Okay, I'm trying to keep everybody straight here.
But others believe the whole operation had the CIA and the FBI working together with right-wing guerrillas, black ops, hired gun mercenaries, illegal arms suppliers, cocaine dealers, and even more drug smugglers.
Wow.
But Barry is going to become a snitch for the DEA, who were using this 1984 indictment of his for the Quaaludes and the cocaine and some money laundering from this Operation Scream to control him. So the DEA was fighting the war on drugs with Nancy Reagan, who told us to just say no.
Right.
And depending on what you believe, the CIA was bringing the drugs into the United States.
Saying, just say yes.
Yes.
God.
Now, there was a plane called the Fat Lady, which I thought was hilarious. It's a cargo plane. The Fat Lady.
Right.
It's a plane that was equipped with hidden cameras given to Barry by the DEA so he could document the Sandinistas' complicity in the cocaine trafficking by capturing evidence of key Nicaraguan government officials as they loaded up Barry's plane with cocaine. So Barry was running drugs for the CIA and guns to the Contras while at the same time working with the DEA to gather evidence on the Sandinistas. He's playing both sides,
Yeah.
okay?
Wow.
But because Reagan officials were secretly supporting the Contra rebels, fighting the Sandinistas, and some Contra supporters and supplies were later credibly connected to cocaine trafficking, that overlap created an enduring allegation that Barry Seal was simultaneously smuggling cocaine and working for the CIA. Now, what has not been established is that the CIA employed Barry Seal to actually import the drugs, that his drug proceeds financed the Contras, or that Bill Clinton, who was governor at the time in Arkansas, authorized or protected Barry's activities in Arkansas, which is one of the really big conspiracy theories.
Okay.
But what Barry was doing, regardless of who you want to believe he was doing it for, was he was smuggling drugs into the United States and dropping them in specific locations for locals who were in on the whole thing to pick up.
Wow, the web just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Jeez.
It does. So the DEA sting goes down in February of 1984. Barry's cover is blown. A month later, he agrees to cooperate, becomes this DEA informant, and conspiracy theories are that there was no way Barry Seal would live very long or long enough to testify against the drug runners and the Sandinistas.
Yeah.
And by 1986, there was a $500,000 contract out on Barry Seal. Now, in 1985, Barry's Florida sentences are reduced due to his cooperation, and he's given time served and 3 years probation. So he's been caught running all this cocaine, like 400 pounds of cocaine and a bunch of Quaaludes, and they're like, okay, so here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to give you we're going to give you time served, which he never served, and 3 years probation.
Wow.
But we're doing it in Louisiana. So he also pleaded guilty to federal charges involving possession of approximately 440 pounds of cocaine and money laundering.
That's it?
That's it. In December 1985 through January of 1986, Judge Frank Polozola, let me get it out right,
Polozola,
whose hands are tied by this government plea arrangement and probation, says that Barry's got to report to the Salvation Army Community Center, a halfway house. It's a halfway house in Louisiana, and he has to be there from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. for 6 months.
Right.
Now, quite frankly, everybody from the CIA to the Colombian cartels needed him gone, and his real part in all of this might have gone unnoticed if his plane hadn't crashed, which made the cover-up of his involvement impossible, okay?
Okay.
On February 19th, 1986, older Barryman Barry Seal was shot to death in the car park of the Salvation Army Community Center in Baton Rouge by a Colombian firing a suppressed MAC-10 submachine gun.
Wow.
Now, how they know it was a Colombian, I have no idea, but that's the official word.
Okay.
It's been said that Barry made more than $50 million smuggling drugs into the United States from South America between 1977 and 1986, and his death was the beginning of the unraveling of some of the crucial details of the Iran-Contra conspiracy, and it involved many of the power elites of the Reagan administration, including George Herbert Walker Bush,
Wow.
Oliver North, and a young Bill Clinton, who at the time was the governor of Arkansas.
Yeah, I remember all the Ollie North trial stuff that was going on.
Yeah.
Or not trial, but when he had to appear before the Senate and give testimony and all that stuff. I mean, it was a big deal.
It was a big deal. And here's what I think I have learned as I've gotten older. We have no idea what's going on in Washington. I don't think any of us know what's going on.
No.
I honestly don't.
No.
I mean, I think there's a lot of theatrics and there's a lot of, hearings and this and that, whatever. I can't figure it out. I don't know that we're supposed to figure it out.
Yeah.
Welcome to America.
I don't think I want to know.
Yeah. Despite all of that, I will say I still think it's the best place in the world. I will say that. I am a proud American. Yep. I just don't necessarily know what's going on all the time in Washington.
Exactly.
On October 5th, 1986, a C-123K, or is it a C-123K, military cargo plane with nose art that read, Fat Lady, crashed in Nicaragua.
Yeah, it's a C-123.
So this is 6 months after Barry Seal is murdered.
Okay.
And the plane was supposedly carrying CIA agents and weapons. And the plane was owned and registered to Barry Seal. So even after Barry's been shot and died, there are still cargo planes going in and out of Nicaragua and drugs being dropped because several pilots and informants later claimed that aircraft continued making cocaine drops at designated Arkansas locations after Barry Seal was murdered.
Wow.
There will be 2 men who investigate all of this, Russell Welch, who was a state trooper in Arkansas, and Bill Duncan from the IRS. And they prepared an extensive 35-volume case all about Mena, Arkansas, for a grand jury, but they will never be called to testify in Arkansas over the drug smuggling.
Wow.
And I actually read that their careers were destroyed and their evidence was never looked at.
Really?
Now, one of the drop zones, allegedly given by an alleged pilot who ran the drugs after Barry is killed, described dropping cocaine and money near railroad tracks in Alexander, Arkansas. The location was called Drop Zone 1A. Now, Mena, Arkansas and Alexander, Arkansas are 121 miles apart, and by air, it's a 13 to 30-minute flight, depending on which plane you're flying.
Okay.
So the reason I gave you all of that information was because it's important to know what's happening in Arkansas in the 1980s.
Okay.
Because on the night of Saturday, August 22nd, 1987, best friends Don Henry, who is 16, and Kevin Ives, who is 17, went out for the night. They spent part of their evening with friends at a commuter parking lot outside of Little Rock because it was a popular teen hangout. So all I could think of was, it's an empty parking lot and all these kids just show up and hang out.
Yeah.
Allegedly that night, Don and Kevin see a few of their buddies. Greg Collins, Daniel, he goes by Booney Bearden, Daniel Booney Bearden, which I thought was hilarious. And possibly another guy named Keith Coney. Now, after this, around midnight, the 2 of these boys, they go to Don's house to get supplies to go what's called spotlighting, which is highly illegal. But what they want to do is one of them shines a spotlight into the eyes of an animal, sort of stunning them, and the other one fires the gun.
Got it.
But the 2 boys get a flashlight from Don's father and take his .22 rifle, and they go out spotlighting. Now, the usual place they would do this was along the railroad tracks that were right behind Don's house. And when they leave, it's about 1 in the morning.
Okay.
Fast forward that night to 4 a.m. It's now August 23rd, 1987. A 6,000-ton, 75-car Union Pacific freight train is traveling through Alexander, Arkansas at over 50 miles per hour. This is when engineer Stephen Schroyer.
I went to school with Steve Schroyer.
Stephen, I'm so sorry. Schroyer. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say. Schroyer.
Yeah, it's almost as bad as my name.
It is. Engineer Stephen sees 2 bodies They're lying motionless, side by side, with a pale green tarp over top of them. Stephen sounds the horn. He puts on the emergency brakes, but the train couldn't stop, and it rolled over the two bodies. It's Dawn and Kevin.
Wow.
Now, what happens next is still up for debate amongst the friends and family of Dawn, as well as many of Dawn and Kevin,
Right.
as well as many other people. And you might be having some doubts by the end of this story, too, okay?
All right.
The train crew reports the accident to Benton, Saline County Police, who arrive around 4:40 a.m. The investigators can never find this green tarp that engineer Stephen sees. They do find a shattered .22 caliber rifle at the scene, and the boys' bodies are really mangled, okay?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Immediately, the local officials treat the boys' unfortunate deaths as a double suicide. And the train crew was saying, no. They weren't alive and then we killed them. They weren't moving when we got to the tracks. When we could see them, they weren't moving at all.
Yeah.
Now, the train cut the bodies into pieces, dragged them over 1,000 feet. The boys were positively identified by their dental records. Their bodies go to the Arkansas State Medical Examiner because Arkansas doesn't have local medical examiners. Each county has a coroner who's either elected or appointed, but they're not authorized to perform autopsies. They can only do death scene investigation.
All right.
So again, their bodies go to this state medical examiner's office, and a man named Dr. Fahmy Malik,
Okay.
he performs the initial autopsies. And about a week after the boys are buried, he called both Dawn and Kevin's parents to his office to tell them of his findings. He said it was, quote, 2 accidental deaths due to THC-intoxication, end quote. They were high. They passed out on the tracks and didn't wake up when the train was honking. They'd fallen into what he called a psychedelic coma. And they had in their body the equivalent of 20 joints.
Ew.
They had smoked 20 joints each? That's my question.
Can you physically even do that?
But what we will learn later is that the crime lab never tested the concentration of the weed in the boys' blood. And oh, by the way, the Arkansas Crime Lab answers to only one man. Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Now, whereas most states have oversight through an attorney general, a Department of Safety, or an independent commission, in Arkansas, it goes straight to Governor Clinton. But after Dr. Malik gave his conclusions, the Saline County Sheriff, James H. Steed Jr., he publicly backs Dr. Malik's findings, saying it was a strange accident that occurred after the boys consumed 20 joints each.
Can you even smoke 20 joints? Okay, let's say they went out at 1 o'clock. Is that when they went out?
Yes.
And they're killed at 4 a.m.?
Yes.
So let's break this down mathematically.
Yeah. You don't even have to, because Dawn and Kevin's parents aren't buying it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. They reject this ruling outright, saying there was very little blood at the scene. What blood did exist was dark. And how, if, like Dr. Malik said, they were in a psychedelic coma, how did they manage to lie down exactly side by side and then cover themselves up with a green tarp? Remember, the engineer said they were covered in this green tarp.
Sure.
Speaking of which, it was never recovered from the scene of the accident. And the police basically tell the train crew, oh, you didn't see a green tarp. That's not what you saw. There was never a green tarp there. I don't know what you think you saw. There wasn't a green tarp. And the engineer's like, there was a green tarp over these boys.
Yeah.
I remember it well. I could see them. We were barreling down. I'm trying to stop the train. I know exactly what I saw. They're like, nah, that's not what you saw.
Yeah, the police are like, I wasn't there, but I can tell you what you saw and what
Exactly.
you didn't see.
Now, there were cuts in Don Henry's T-shirt. They were consistent with a stab wound to the back. But there's nothing about anything like that in the autopsy. It's like nothing to see here. Move along.
The train stabbed them.
Yeah, we're done. This is it. They smoked all these joints. They laid on the track. It was an accident, but they did it to themselves.
22 joints.
Now, when Don and Kevin's parents consult outside experts, their suspicions are, of course, validated. And 1 year later, in 1988, a Dr. James Gerardo reviewed Dr. Malick's work and concluded it was, quote, highly unlikely, if not impossible, end quote, for THC to cause the deep unconsciousness Dr. Malick described. And he's the guy who saw that the crime lab hadn't even run mass spectrometry, which is the only truly reliable blood test to see how much THC is in somebody's body.
Right.
A Dr. Arthur McBray also called Dr. Malick's conclusions, quote, very bizarre. So, under a lot of pressure, a 3-day hearing is held in the Saline County Courthouse, and on February 26, 1988, the ruling was downgraded from accidental death to undetermined.
All right.
Now, the families hired Dan Harmon, who was also the Saline County prosecutor. They struck a deal with the county sheriff, James Steed. The family said that they would stop publicly criticizing him for not doing more in this investigation if he would authorize a real investigation into the deaths of their sons. Because by this time, rumors were circulating like bad air on an airplane, okay?
Yeah.
Don and Kevin's bodies were exhumed, and a second autopsy was performed by Georgia medical examiner Dr. Joseph Burton in Atlanta.
And I'm going to interrupt just for a second. So the second, when they exhumed them, how long had it been?
A year. It's been a year.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. It's been a year. They get the bodies to Georgia. Dr. Joseph Burton, he's a kind of a famous guy, a medical examiner. He'd been called to weigh in on a number of high-profile cases. And when Dr. Burton did his autopsy, his findings were very different from Dr. Malick's. The boys had the equivalent of only one marijuana cigarette in their systems, nowhere near enough to cause unconsciousness.
Right.
The cuts in Don Henry's t-shirt were consistent with a stab wound to the back.
Wow.
Because he had been stabbed. They could see this. Kevin Ives had suffered a crushed skull, apparently from a blow, possibly from the butt of his own .22 rifle. Dr. Malick's original autopsy had allegedly, quote, mutilated Kevin's skull, sawing it in multiple directions and dismantling his jaw, making it hard to establish the original fracture pattern.
So the state examiner, he did that?
Yes.
Wow.
So it sounds a little hinky, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
5 other pathologists reviewed the autopsies and agreed with Dr. Burton's conclusions. So now that the 2 boys' parents have all this evidence, in the spring of 1988, a Saline County grand jury led by Special Prosecutor Dan Harmon and Deputy Prosecutor Richard Garrett under Judge John Cole ruled that in June of 1988 that the deaths of Don and Kevin were, quote, probably a homicide, end quote.
Yeah, think?
And they suggested that the killings might be tied to drug trafficking. By September, the grand jury had even more to say. They decided that the case was, quote, definitely a homicide, end quote. In the fall of 1988, Unsolved Mysteries covered the case, and Robert Stack, you gotta love Robert Stack. Robert Stack asked Richard Garrett for his theory, and Garrett said that the boys, quote, saw something they shouldn't have seen, and it had to do with drugs, end quote.
Okay.
But after all the fuss, Kevin's mother, Linda Ives, had supposedly landed on the Clintons' enemy list that was kept by Mark Fabiani. And it wasn't officially called an enemies list, but Fabiani commissioned the famous, quote, communication stream of conspiracy commerce, end quote.
Talk about conspiracy theories.
Talk about conspiracy theories, right?
Yep.
But this guy, this Fabiani guy, he was the Clintons' damage control. He handled the White House the Whitewater land deal investigation, the White House travel office scandal, and campaign fundraising questions. And his business partner, he and his business partner were known as the masters of disaster because they were aggressive in their media strategy to defend Bill and Hillary. And in fact, it's Mark Fabiani who is on the record publicly dismissing the Mena, Arkansas drug smuggling allegations on the administration's behalf, telling the press, quote, "The allegations are as bizarre as they sound." When the CIA Inspector General opened it in 1996 into the probe into Mena. So they're just like, this is ridiculous.
Right.
This is so stupid, right?
Right.
So according to some sources, Linda, Kevin's mom, was stirring up too much dust over her son and Don's murders, which is what they were, and it landed her on this list. And here's what I found online to be Linda's theory, or the story she believes is true, okay?
All right.
On August 23rd, in the early morning hours after midnight, while the boys are out spotting deer, they run into Dan Harmon, who's picking up a drop from one of the planes from Mena. Yes, that Dan Harmon, the judicial district prosecutor.
Really?
The guy that they went to try to make something happen in this case.
Okay, I didn't put 2 + 2 together. That's crazy.
He is there with his girlfriend, Charlene Wilson. Okay, that's his girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
And according to Charlene, she was in the car near the railroad tracks that night waiting for a drug drop.
Wow.
According to her, she was too high on cocaine and meth to leave the car. According to Charlene, Dan was at the tracks that night with Keith McCaskill and Larry Ruschel. Now, if you think, well, maybe she was too high to actually see what transpired that night, there was a 12-year-old boy named Tom Niehaus who was playing near the tracks early that morning, and he independently recognized Tom Harmon among a group of people because Tom wasn't just dating Charlene. Tom was dating this little boy's mother as well.
Oh, my God.
Now, stay with me here, okay?
Yeah, man, this is getting more twisted.
Charlene is the woman who was a witness against Bill Clinton and his half-brother Roger regarding cocaine use. She testified to a federal jury in 1990 that she personally watched Robert hand then-Governor Bill Clinton cocaine at a Little Rock club called La Bistros. And after she came forward with this information, Dan Harmon retaliated. He staged a raid on her house, and she was convicted in December of 1993 for selling small quantities of weed and meth to an undercover informant. So she had a small quantity of weed, and she's selling to an undercover informant. Okay. She receives a 31-year sentence for this.
Oh, my God.
She has said it was all a setup to silence her.
Yeah, this is not, I mean, it's getting deeper and deeper.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Her case will go all the way to the United States Supreme Court. Again, she has said it was to silence her. There aren't any court documents that prove this. So I keep saying allegedly, and this is this person's story and that person's story.
Yeah.
I'm doing that for a reason, okay?
Yeah.
So Kevin's mom, Linda's theory is this, that Dan Harmon, Keith McCaskill, and Charlene Wilson were at the tracks for this drug pickup from Mena that's going to drop from the sky. Remember, it's area A1.
Right.
And that's when they run into Don and Kevin. Now, she believes that a gun was fired. I believe the theory is that the .22 was fired, and everybody scatters. Don and Kevin take off. They run into a guy that they know named Keith Coney. They had possibly been with him earlier that evening. He takes the two boys to a place called the Ranchette Grocery on Highway 111, where Don tries to make a phone call. But it never goes through because two police officers in plain clothes and an unmarked car show up. And while Keith Coney is still with Kevin and Don, that's when the officers sort of show up and things escalate. Again, this is a theory, but it reoccurs across multiple retellings of this case.
Okay.
So these two law enforcement officers are named Kirk Land and Jay Campbell, and they scuffle with Don and Kevin. And there are accounts where it said that they assaulted the boys, that Kevin reached for the gun and one of the officers grabbed it and smashed Kevin's head in with the butt of the rifle, which would be consistent with the second autopsy.
Right.
And the reason we say the officers were Kirkland and Jay Campbell is because there was another person in the ranchette who witnessed it. His name is Ronnie. Now, when the tussle starts, Keith Coney, who brought them to the ranchette, he takes off on his motorcycle. He doesn't hang around. And he goes to a local bar called the Wagon Wheel and tells two men what happened. But Ronnie Godwin, he's the other guy that witnesses everything, will tell Arkansas State Police investigators in an interview about a year after Don and Kevin's murder that on the night of the 23rd, he saw two men who he believed were plainclothes police officers near a phone booth at the grocery store close to the tracks. And he says he saw them beating two teenage boys before forcing them into an unmarked car and driving down a dirt road. Now, Ronnie, this is a small town, so people kind of know all the roads and who everybody is.
Right.
And Ronnie knew that the dirt road that the police took was a dead end. And this unmarked car is going to have to come out the way it went in. So he parked his car, he hid it behind two trailers, and he waits and he watches. And according to him, the car came out 15 minutes later, and the boys weren't in the back seat anymore. Jay Campbell and Kirkland are these police officers. They're actually undercover narcotics officers for the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office. And while Dan Harmon is putting together this case, he's actually orchestrating the whole thing. If you believe the conspiracy theories, if you believe he was the one at the tracks, they come to him. He's basically looking for himself, right? Because he told Linda Ives that Godwin's description fit Campbell and Lane, so the identification by description was partly filtered through Dan Harmon to Linda Ives, Kevin's mother. And remember Keith Coney, he's the guy who took the boys to the ranchette so they could use the payphone.
Right.
When the tussle starts again, he takes off and ends up going to this Wagon Wheel place, right? It's a private club that is managed by Keith McCaskill. And he's known to be popular with several law enforcement figures, including Deputy Prosecutor Richard Garrett, Sheriff Steed, and Deputy Elmendorf. And this is when he tells two men what happened. And remember, Keith McCaskill was supposedly one of the three at the tracks at the beginning.
Right.
Now, according to Keith Coney, there are a lot of Keiths, I'm sorry. According to Keith Coney, Keith McCaskill takes off when he hears Keith Coney's story, and there are many who have said that Keith actually saw the boys being laid down on the railroad tracks.
Wow.
Allegedly,
Okay.
according to one conspiracy.
Right.
I feel like I'm the guys on Ancient Aliens, where it's like ancient alien conspiracy theorists say,
The disclaimer.
I'm sorry I'm hedging everything, but the stories are vastly different, okay?
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime you get into conspiracy theories, I mean, you gotta protect yourself and say allegedly.
Right.
Yeah, we should do a series called Alleged Crimes, because this is really interesting.
Rob folded towels yesterday. Allegedly. Just kidding. He actually did.
Yeah, well.
But there's yet another account of that night. Mike Crook, a local nightclub owner, he owns a place called Gigi's. He provided a separate and more indirect account. He told police that on the morning the boys' bodies were found, a drifter he knew only as, quote, Jerry, end quote.
Wait, I got to interrupt. The reason I laughed is because he owns a place called Gigi's and his last name is Crook.
Yes.
That's appropriate. Sorry. I had to let you know why I was chuckling.
So Crook says this drifter named Jerry came into the club. He doesn't know his last name.
Yeah.
And Jerry had said he had seen the boys the night before smoking a joint at the Ranchette grocery store when two plainclothes men pulled up in an unmarked police car. And according to Crook, Jerry specifically named one of the men as Lane, whom Jerry recognized from Lane's time with the Benton Police Department, while the second larger man was not identified by name at that point. Now, again, this is an alleged conspiracy theory. I'm not saying this is what happened.
Right.
You have to decide what you think happened.
You make the call.
That's right. By the way, Kirk Lane and Jay Campbell filed a defamation lawsuit after being named as suspects in a 1996 documentary titled Obstruction of Justice, The Mena Connection. And because of this, we have court records that show that Mike Crook said that, quote, either by name and more tenuously by description, that Jerry specifically named Kirk Lane, while Ronnie Godwin's identification was based on matching a physical description rather than a direct naming, end quote. Okay. So because they filed this lawsuit, a lot of information had to come out. Right. And that's what we do know. That's what's on the record. That's what's on the court record.
All right. No allegedly here.
That part wasn't alleged.
Right.
The part that's alleged is that they beat these boys and threw them in the back of the car.
Right.
Now, both Dan Harmon and the prosecutor, Richard Garrett, will be accused of drug cover-ups and scandals in the 1990s in Arkansas. And Jay Campbell will be convicted on 28 counts of obtaining prescription drugs through fraud and burglary, theft and receiving stolen property, misusing prisoners for personal labor, hindering apprehension or prosecution, filing a false police report, alleged involvement in arranging the manufacturing of methamphetamine. He receives a 40-year sentence that will be overturned by the Arkansas Supreme Court. He pleaded guilty in February of 2010 to reduced felony charges and got a 15-year sentence with credit for time served, and was paroled and released on April 5th, 2010. And his parole ended in June of 2022. And just to be clear, none of these charges had anything to do with the murders of Dawn and Kevin.
Okay.
But he wasn't a good guy because he got caught doing a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
But even after the case of Kevin and Dawn's murders is reopened and they start interviewing people, they start dying under odd circumstances. The people that they start interviewing start dying. In April of 1988, Keith Coney, who took the boys to the ranchette so they could use a payphone and saw the two officers assault Dawn and Kevin, Keith tells his mother that he knew too much about Dawn and Kevin's murder and he feared for his life. He was scheduled to testify before the grand jury, but on May 17, 1988, just a month later, 20-year-old Keith Coney crashes into the rear of a tractor trailer on his motorcycle. Officially, it was a traffic accident, but there are reports that Keith's throat had been cut and he was bleeding and he was being chased. There's no police report or autopsy report that confirms this claim.
Really?
July 1988, Daniel Booney Bearden disappears. He was one of the other boys who was allegedly with Dawn and Kevin the night of their murders before they went out spotting. He was in the parking lot with them. Mm-hmm. Dan Harmon had attempted to subpoena him, but whether he was murdered or voluntarily disappeared or possessed direct information about Dawn and Kevin's murders is unknown. There was an anonymous tip in March of 1989 that he'd been murdered and buried near the Arkansas River, but authorities searched and didn't find a body. They did find a piece of clothing that did belong to Booney. November 1988, Keith McCaskill said he had information or knowledge about the murders of Dawn and Kevin because he managed the Wagon Wheel Bar, which was frequented by people connected to the drug trade in Saline County. Officially, he was keeping his ears open for Deputy Prosecutor Richard Garrett. Unofficially, McCaskill heard from Keith Comey the night of the murders about what had happened. And there's one source again that says after he heard, he went to the railroad tracks and may have witnessed the boys being placed on the tracks. Keith McCaskill was so sure he was going to be killed that he said goodbye to his friends and family. Wow. And on the morning of November 10th, 1988, Keith was found in the carport of his home in Benton, Arkansas, wrapped in a flower-patterned plastic shower curtain. The evidence showed he had had an extremely violent struggle. He died of 113 stab wounds and was found by a female friend who stopped by the house with another woman.
Oh, wow.
Investigators found hair clutched in Keith McCaskill's hand. Ronald Shane Smith, McCaskill's 19-year-old neighbor who lived across the street, initially said he had witnessed several masked men attack McCaskill. His father reported that information to police, but investigators soon treated Smith as the perpetrator. They wanted to arrest him.
Oh, jeez.
And they did.
Oh, my gosh.
And a jury convicted him of second-degree murder on
What?
August 11th, 1989, and sentenced him to 10 years because he said, "This is what I saw."
Oh, my gosh.
However, the Arkansas Court of Appeals reversed Smith's conviction in December of 1990. The trial judge had improperly prevented the defense from presenting evidence that other people had threatened McCaskill, and McCaskill believed he was being followed and feared for his life. A witness had allegedly been offered $4,000 to murder McCaskill. Someone other than Smith might therefore have committed the crime. They let him go.
Jeez.
Now, people in this town are starting to shut up.
Yeah.
If they see something, they don't say anything because this is sort of what happens.
Yeah.
January 1989, Greg Collins, who was a close friend of both Keith Coney and Booney Bearden, is questioned by Dan Harmon and Richard Garrett privately. Then he's called to testify before the Saline County grand jury. But before he can testify to what he knew, whether that was first or secondhand information, we will never know, because he was found dead on January 22nd, 1989, of a shotgun blast to the face.
Good grief.
He will be shot 3 times at close range. And when Dr. Malick, who's still doing the autopsies for Governor Clinton,
Right.
when Dr. Malick does this autopsy, he rules it a suicide. He's shot 3 times.
Oh, man. That guy's strong.
And he rules it a suicide. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Shot 3 times with a shotgun.
And in the face. And it was a suicide.
And they bought that.
Well, they didn't buy it, but that was the official report.
Wow.
And there was nobody else to report to but the governor's office.
Right.
Then in April of 1989, Jeffrey Edward Rhodes, he went by Jeff, after telling his relatives that he knew something about the boys' murders, but more specifically, he told his father, Eddie Rhodes, in February of 1989, that he desperately wanted to leave Benton, Arkansas, because he knew something about Keith McCaskill's murder. Jeff was killed by 2 gunshots to the head. His body was dismembered or partially cut up, burned, and left in the city landfill. Jeff was 21.
Gee whiz.
Interestingly, there are reports that Jeff tried to arrange a 1-ounce cocaine purchase from Don Henry and Kevin Ives the week before they were murdered. This is from an Arkansas State Police report. So they're going back and saying, okay, this guy was involved with these 2 boys, and these 2 boys, who were on the tracks and are now dead for 2 years, they were selling cocaine. I don't know that there's any evidence of that.
Yeah.
A man named Frank Pilcher goes to Jeff to buy a 1/4 ounce of coke on credit or on front, and Frank and his girlfriend Marissa Bragg will be convicted of Jeff's murder and sentenced to life. And again, sticking with the dead men tell no tales, a man named Richard Winters was the 4th witness called before the 1988 Saline County grand jury. There were reports that Winters said he participated in the beating of Dawn and Kevin, and another person said Winters claimed he'd actually killed them. But everyone seemed to think that he was somehow involved because Richard Winters worked for or was associated with a man named James Calloway, who was a Benton area businessman who was repeatedly accused by informants of cocaine trafficking. And what is thought to have perhaps happened to Richard is that he and another man went into a gambling location with the intent to rob the place. But when he got there, one of those men who was supposed to be a victim that night already had a sawed-off shotgun in his hand, and he fired it, killing Richard. And he was sent into the situation by a man who was being investigated by the feds. So this is such a tangled web of who's doing what and who's doing what for whom, and if you knew too much, you were gone.
Right.
Finally, there's Jordan Colin Kettleson. He was a cocaine dealer and the son of Ronald Kettleson, a Benton's cocaine supplier. Jeff Rhodes reportedly worked for Ronald, Jordan's dad, and Jeff owed him money. But Frank Pilcher, who was convicted of murdering Jeff Rhodes, ID'd Jordan Kettleson as the man responsible for the stabbing death of Keith McCaskill.
Good grief.
Jordan is found on June 25th, 1990, in the front seat of his pickup truck with a shotgun blast to the head. The later accounts will claim that he had knowledge of Don and Kevin's murders, but maybe he was only responsible for the murder of Jeff Rhodes. Then in 2018, Billy Jack Haynes, a former pro wrestler, came forward with a confession. He said he'd witnessed or helped to place the bodies on the tracks during a drug drop cover-up. He was like muscle for the guys who were there.
Right.
His claims have never been substantiated. He has never been arrested, even though he came forward with this. As for others involved in the case, Linda Ives, Kevin's mother, who was a great advocate for getting to the truth, she died in June of 2021 at the age of 71. Dr. Fahmy Malik, he left Arkansas as the state medical examiner just about the time Bill Clinton decided to run for president. He moved to Clearwater, Florida, where he practiced medicine. He died in 2018 at the age of 85. Now, Kevin's father, Larry, still uses his voice, hoping to get to the truth. He's recently coordinated with some independent investigative media projects, passing on the family's accumulated case files. The family has done a better job of trying to figure out what happened to their children than any other agency in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got multiple agencies that are involved in all this stuff, I mean, you're not going to get any cooperation.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don Henry's father, George, lived until 2024 when he passed away in Arkansas. He nor Kevin's mom got to the bottom of any of this before they died, because in 1995, the case is closed without resolution.
Wow.
And remember I said Dan Harmon got into some trouble for drug cover-ups and scandals?
Yeah.
Well, in 1997, Dan Harmon is convicted under the Hobbs Act for running his prosecutor's office as a criminal enterprise. He routinely extorted drug dealers and citizens, leveraging his official power to demand cash bribes or confiscated property in exchange for dropping or refusing to file criminal charges.
Man.
And a little tidbit about the first medical examiner who reported to Bill Clinton only, Dr. Fahmy Malik. During the early 1980s, Bill Clinton's mother, Virginia Dell Cassidy, who was she was practicing as a nurse anesthetist under the name Virginia Dwyer Kelly, she faced severe professional backlash and lawsuits following the deaths of two patients under her care, a 17-year-old named Susie Deer and a girl named Laura Slayton. They both died while Bill Clinton's mom was administering anesthesia.
Gotcha.
Susie Deer had a brick thrown through her windshield, but when Bill's mom couldn't intubate her, she went into cardiac arrest. Dr. Malik's autopsy ruling was that it was a straightforward homicide case. She was killed by the brick. But then why did they take her to surgery?
Yeah.
The Laura Slayton death happened while Virginia was defending her position with the Susie Deer case, so she couldn't be held liable for that one because it would ruin the other case. So Dr. Malik stated that it wasn't medical negligence on Virginia's part. But Dr. Malik also had some other bizarre rulings, Don and Kevin's among them. Another was the multiple gunshot wound being called a suicide.
Yeah, that one is crazy.
Yeah. But Bill Clinton defended Dr. Malik to the end, giving him a 41.5% pay increase. And again, he only pushed for him to resign when he was going to run for president. And even then, Bill secured him a job as the consultant at the Arkansas Health Department before he moved on to Clearwater, Florida. The investigation into Don and Kevin's murders stalled and was reportedly closed again in 1995, but the murders were never solved. Many of the files pertaining to that night have mysteriously disappeared.
Of course they did.
Today, authorities reportedly consider it an open investigation, a nearly 40-year-old cold case with no arrests, no convictions, and no official explanation for who killed Don Henry and Kevin Ives. But that is the story of the boys on the track, and that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, my take on this, and I'm going to preface this one more time, that we are apolitical, so don't give us a lot of hassle because we were talking about the Clintons or whatever. This is just the case, and this is the
There are
theories.
tons of conspiracy theories. The information about his mother, that's all on the record.
Yeah.
So you can go look that up yourself.
Yeah.
I'm giving, if I gave you facts, I told you they were facts and it was on the record. Otherwise, I told you it was,
Yeah.
a conspiracy theory.
My take on, though, is the Dan Harmon aspect of
Yeah.
this. He's the one that I've kept focusing in on, because it seems like if they pulled somebody in to interview them, it's like they were figuring out, is this guy a liability or is this girl a liability? It's this person a liability.
If you believe he was on the tracks that night, yes.
If they're a liability, then they're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about being caught in the spider's web.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah. But we do know that he did a lot of other horrible things.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the end,
Right.
we can't say definitively that he had anything to do with the boy's death.
That word, it's called allegedly.
Allegedly, right. It's one of the theories. It's one of the conspiracy theories. I did want to tell you, though, even the Dr. Burton in Atlanta, he didn't escape scandal, because in May of 2018, Dr. Burton pleaded guilty to conspiracy to unlawfully distribute and dispense substances without a legitimate medical purpose. Prosecutors said that from approximately July 2015 through 2017, he issued more than 1,500 prescriptions to roughly 350 people. About 60% were reportedly for oxycodone. And authorities estimated that he prescribed approximately 110,000 doses of opioid painkillers. Prosecutors presented evidence that Dr. Burton exchanged some prescriptions for sexual favors and nude photographs. In August of 2018, he was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. He died of cardiac arrest in federal prison in November of 2019 at age 74. So even the second guy they asked to do the autopsy okay, whatever.
What's in the water down there?
I don't know, but he was in Atlanta. Dr. Burton was in Atlanta. And this was the guy who was called in on tons of really high-profile cases in Georgia. I don't know. Keep it in your pants, people. I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly.
Just don't.
Well, they're all conspiracy theories. We just got to keep repeating that, because we're going to get...
I said it from the beginning.
I know.
It's going to happen.
I know. But
this case was requested, which was why I did it. It was requested by, I think, 3 different people in my list. So thank you for sending that along. And you didn't allegedly request it. You actually did request it.
Well, then let's do some stuff that's not allegedly, and it's just really stupid, with a little bless your heart.
Well, bless your heart.
All right, number 1, I'm calling, I'll pencil you in.
I'll pencil you in.
Yeah. If he can survive the remaining 340-some days of the year, he will definitely win the dumbest criminal of the year, Philly.com quotes Police Chief David Splain.
Okay.
Mickey Spillane.
I was going to say that. What a great name for a police chief.
Yeah. The dumb criminal in question is Pennsylvanian 17-year-old Jason Hayes, who is charged with kidnapping and robbing an old woman at gunpoint.
Oh.
I know. Police say Hayes entered the victim's home through a window early January 3rd and woke her up by poking her with a gun, according to Fox 29. When she didn't have any cash to give him, he allegedly made her drive to an ATM, Philly.com reports. Police say he wanted $2,000, but the ATM would only, it could be the ATM, would only let the victim withdraw $460.
Yeah, a lot of them have
there's a cap.
A limit.
Yep. Hayes allegedly held the victim and her husband at gunpoint in their kitchen for another hour or so before telling the victim to meet him in a parking lot the following morning with $1,500.
Oh my gosh.
Quote, not that we would believe that a robber would ever showed up for a scheduled appointment, but it was something we had to cover, unquote. Philly.com quotes Spillane. Not only did Hayes show up, but he was wearing the exact same clothes the victims described from the previous morning.
Good Lord.
Unfortunately for him, it was police and not the victim who was waiting for him. According to Fox, Hayes allegedly had the $363 and what appeared to be the victim's watch on him when he was arrested.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, police say Hayes threatened to kill the couple multiple times, including if they went to the cops. They are scared to death of him. Hayes is facing 11 charges, including robbery and kidnapping in connection with the incident. Dumb.
Well, that just goes to show you when the youth of today says the old people don't know anything.
Exactly.
I don't know.
All right. Number 2.
Number 2.
Oh, sorry, wrong number.
Okay.
A guy in Albany, Georgia texted his probation officer by making a mistake asking, "You have any weed?"
Oh my gosh, I knew he was going to ask for drugs.
The probation officer then showed up at the errant texter's house with drug agents who found a bag of cocaine, reports WALB. And that's why Alvin Cross is not only going back to prison for violating his parole, he's serving an extra year. The story seems to have hit a sweet spot of the dumb criminal / tech gaffe because Cross is the butt of a lot of jokes out there. Here's one. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution. You don't have to be stupid to go to prison, but it helps. The Gawker. If you were to get high and make a list of people who hypothetically you would not want to text with a request for weed, probation officer would probably be near the top.
Yeah, man.
Death and taxes. Here's a little pro tip. If you find yourself on probation from jail, under no circumstances should you text your probation officer the message, "You have some weed?"
Yeah.
And then CNET said, this could happen to any of us. Well, if any of us were serving probation. And then this one is my favorite. It's not funny, but it's from the UK, the Metro from UK. They're always so proper over there. And I'm going to do my best UK British accent.
Here we go.
Here we go. They took a more narrative approach. When prospects look dire and family friends neglect them, some folks resort to dialing the dealer. However, one man decided to avoid this route, opting to contact a far more unusual confidant instead.
I don't know that was a British accent, but okay.
Well, it was a cross between Cockney British and Australian.
It was very polite for sure.
All right, number 3 and finally. Laughing all the way to the bank.
Okay.
Cops in a small Prince Edward Island town have warned that drunk drivers will be punished with the music of some fellow Canadians, Nickelback.
Oh, God.
In a Facebook post, the Kensington Force warns that they'll be out this holiday season looking for those dumb enough to feel they can drink and drive, the Toronto Star reports.
Oops.
Quote, "When we catch you, we will catch you on top of the hefty fine, a criminal charge, and a year's driving suspension. We will also provide you with a bonus gift of playing the office's copy of Nickelback in the cruiser on the way to jail," says the Post, which has a photo of an unopened cassette copy of the Alberta band's 2001 Silver Side Up album. Quote, "We figure if you were foolish enough to get behind the wheel after drinking, then a little Chad Kroeger and the boys is perfect gift for you," the Post says. Quote, "What we were trying to do is put a little humor into a very serious matter of drinking and driving to spark conversations," Constable Rob Hartland tells the CBC. Quote, "Poor Nickelback. They take the brunt of a nation's joke, and I'm sure that they're crying all the way to the bank," he says, adding that the band was chosen partly because frontman Chad Kroeger was arrested for drunk driving in 2006. Yeah. Police in Australia issued a wanted poster for the band. The crime, impersonating musicians.
I thought you were going to say they put him in a jail cell and then they just played it really loud over and over and over again.
No, like I said, he was just trying to, kind of be a little funny, which I think it is. And before we get notes, I have nothing against Nickelback.
Oh, okay. Yeah, me either.
Yeah, it was funny.
Not that I listened to them, but I don't have anything.
I don't either. Whatever.
I guess what was it? The prisoners of war or something? They were forced to listen to Kenny G 24/7, like on blast. I might be making that up in my head, or maybe I wrote that in a book and I just can't remember it. But for some reason, Kenny G comes to my head. I also like Kenny G too.
Well,
I was a girl of the '80s, so of course I like Kenny G.
Yeah, Kenny G gets a lot of bad hate from people, especially musicians. But the truth is, he's an incredible jazz saxophone player. And what I like about Kenny G is he found a niche, he found a market, and he exploited it and became a multimillionaire while everybody else was criticizing him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, I like Kenny G. Don't get me wrong.
Way to go, Kenny.
Don't get me wrong. Well, if you have a bless your heart or you like Kenny G or Nickelback.
Yeah. Whatever you like.
All you have to do is go to hitchtohomicide.com. When you get there, there's a pull-down menu, and while you're there, you can also suggest a case like this one was suggested, or tell us about your brush with true crime. Hopefully it's not you breaking into a house and forcing an elderly couple to meet you the day after.
Or a conspiracy theory.
That's right. Yeah. That is allegedly my husband out there.
And that is allegedly my wife, my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitch to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.
Moving yourself sounds simple until it isn't. The packing, the truck rental, the lifting, the mess. Now imagine moving with United Van Lines. United's pros know how to transport your things safely and seamlessly. No guesswork, no borrowed dollies, no hassles. A full-service move by United means your move is handled by experts. Your time stays yours and your stress level dramatically lower. Full-service moving from America's #1 mover, United. It's a better way to move. Get a free quote at UnitedVanLines.com.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.